options.
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Welcome to everyone here, and everyone joining us through Zoom. Jumping right into the work session, item 1, interlocal cooperation agreement between Utah County and Woodland Hills regarding election ballot drop boxes. Jody, you put yourself on the next page.
I did.
You have no
So
reason
you'll
not
see
to.
that outside of the city offices, we now have a official election drop box.
Saw it.
It's open 24/7. It is under video camera surveillance. So know that you are being taped. And the county comes up every night and checks it and empties it, so we're thankful for them. This interlocal agreement just says that we'll continue to keep the camera on it during election period, that will allow them access to recording if there's any vandalism. And that's pretty much it.
So bolted down good?
Corbett took care of the installation and installing the camera, and just so everyone knows, it was at no cost to the city.
That was one of my questions.
Yeah, we didn't have to, we paid Corbett's the labor, but that's it.
So this stays there now permanently?
Permanently,
Okay,
so we will have
But the
that.
video will only be going during balloting time, not year round.
like now?
Actually, the video is year round.
The video
We just tied it into the rest of the system.
system, so
Yeah.
it's actually gonna be, we can use it for multi-purpose for the city center on the outside on there.
That's great.
So we've got another avenue to make sure that we're secure here at the city center.
Your camera.
So,
Could I see my bill there someday? No? It's not for that? We can't use it for other purposes?
Well, because we wouldn't have a key, would we?
no.
Oh.
That key to what?
But, you know,
Yeah.
that really brings up a good point. A lot of people are putting their bills in at the mailboxes where it's not under video surveillance. And I would really like to be able to get another box like that,
Yeah.
put it next to it for utility drop box for our utility bills.
That's a great idea.
Yeah,
Little bit
down
more
there it's too
secure.
small anyway.
Yeah, and maybe it doesn't even have to be that big. Maybe Corbett can come up with some other great idea. I know he can.
Maybe even installing something on the side of the building like they do, you know,
Yeah.
like a deposit at the bank where you just put it in and
The only thing is the camera would not face that right now. And we'd
would
see
see
who
whoever walked up.
walked up, but
I would hesitate to have it drop into the building,
Okay. Just because other things could drop.
Could be a
into it.
bomb or something.
even if it was just a smoke bomb.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
So that's newspaper worthy, right? And a ballot box?
yeah.
We put it in the newsletter.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
And so cast your ballot, only do it once. And the box will be open until 8 p.m. on June 28th.
An election tip, vote once.
I mean,
Only
Well,
once.
each ballot is uniquely coded, so they will know you can, your envelope is. So you can always track online where your ballot is
Yeah,
at any
yeah,
particular moment.
It's true.
And then, once it's separated electronically, your ballot from your envelope, they know that it arrived, but it does not track your ballot, to you. But it shows that it was arrived securely to the ballot center. Yeah.
When they lock it, they have a plate that goes into it so that the door doesn't flip open, and the plate on the front of it says drop box closed.
The other thing they have in there is they have a GPS tracker. So when they pick up the ballots, they know exactly what time it was picked up by who and what direction it went to get back to the center. And then they also has the ability to weigh the ballots. So they know exactly the weight that is in there. So when they count them and they say, the weight shows there's 50, are there 50 ballots here? So they can tell by weight, they can tell by GPS tracker, and they can tell by video surveillance. I mean, there's a lot that goes into
Fancy.
security
Yeah,
of the ballots for Utah County.
Yeah, so we're pretty excited about it.
That's right.
And we get a new camera that maybe we can,
Yeah.
So they're leaving that behind when,
yeah, it's
comes time.
multi-use,
Yeah,
so.
very good.
Good.
Exciting.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
All right. Item 2, proposed ordinance amending sections 288 and 289 of the city development and construction standards. Corbett,
That's the one I had you review, remember?
Yeah, this is just, in the past, we had some issues with fire sprinklers and the water service to the house. And so we changed the code to require an 1.5-inch service to the house. The difference it makes is when you run fire flow through that service to the house, you have what's called friction loss. Friction loss is a factor of how fast the water's moving through the pipe, the inner lining of the pipe, the pressure drop. The difference it makes in a 1-inch service for a 30 GPM flow over 100 feet, there's about a 33 PSI pressure drop. And in comparison to 1.5-inch pipe, not only changing the pipe between the meter and the house, so upsizing that pipe to 1.5 from 1 inch, there's only a 3 PSI pressure drop. So we changed it to require an 1.5-inch lateral to the house from the meter to try to avoid those issues.
All houses from now on?
Every house from now on.
That's a good thing.
I wish that was when I built my house.
The other change is, the code didn't allow for water meters.
In the driveway.
And now it will.
The only difference it makes is that if you put the meter in the driveway, you just have to have a full-size lid so that we can get in. I mean, otherwise, you gotta install a meter or change a meter. You can't get in that little hole to install the meter. So you take the ring and lid off of a regular can, but if it's in the driveway, we just require a full-size lid is the only difference. So we're allowing them in the drive, and all the cities that I checked allow the meters in the driveway. It's just you have to have a bigger lid so that you can get into it without tearing up concrete.
okay, thank you. Any questions or comments?
He answered them. I had one, but he answered it, so.
All right, perfect. Well, then let's move right along. Okay, update on development agreement with Summit Creek. Wayne is not here tonight, obviously. Dave, are you in a position where we can blindside you with, I'm sure it's not a blindside, I'm sure you're
Yeah.
well prepared.
I think everyone was sent the development agreement,
Mm-hmm.
so, it's, we think done. It's been through a number of reviews, been reviewed by our attorneys, been reviewed by Wayne and I, been reviewed by Summit Creek, been reviewed by their attorneys. We're at a point now where I think we've got the public hearing scheduled, is that,
28th?
yeah, and then hopefully we can get it agreed to and passed. If you do have any comments, which of course they're welcome, I'd be happy to answer any comments that you have or any questions you have about it. It's definitely been a give and take, so I'm not gonna claim that that's a perfect contract, that it gives the city everything that we want, but it also doesn't give Summit Creek everything they wanted either. And so there's kind of been some give and take and negotiations that have been pretty difficult at times. But I think we've come to a good spot, so I guess that's the biggest update that I can give you.
Okay, thank you. Well, and even going the development agreement route is, I think, a real, that's real progress too, just in terms of how we approach these sorts of situations, I think, so.
Yeah, I will say, a development agreement is a rather new thing for our city. We had not typically required a development agreement, even for large subdivisions. And this is actually something that got added to the Mountain Villa overlay zone as a requirement, and so therefore Summit Creek had to do a development agreement. However, even though they had to, it's been what, 10, 12 years of development without a development agreement, so anyway, needless to say, this is long overdue.
So going forward then, if we had another big development that needed a development agreement, do we need to put something in place that says that is done first? So that we don't fall into the same trap of waiting a decade to do something after it's already started. Because I think that's been really frustrating for the developers as well as, and for the city. But I don't know how that goes. I know I was in a meeting yesterday that they were talking about development agreements and how there are some issues throughout the state, depending on what's going on, and if they should be more standardized, if there should be a working group from around the state to talk about it. But I wasn't sure exactly where we were going forward because we haven't done very many.
Yeah, well, baby steps, Gary, so.
Yeah,
I think this is a good template moving forward. I don't know what meeting you were in, I would strongly suggest the state keep their nose out of this, because it's so unique. You read that development agreement, and much of it is because of Woodland Hills and the uniqueness of Woodland Hills. It's not
Exactly.
the kind of thing that I could get a template from the state and say, here,
well, I don't
just
think
use
it's
this.
necessarily just a one-size-fits-all template. It would probably be more of a directional outline that would just say, make sure this and this and this is included type thing. We would have to remember that a large majority of leadership in the legislature are developers. So they are looking to
They're looking to simplify their lives.
yeah,
I
and
get
so what I'm saying is if they're asking the cities for input on what that might look like, then you don't wanna just step back because they're gonna go forward no matter what, right? Not that we need to necessarily be involved, but if there's an opportunity to share some insights or to say, these are some things that we think should be included, because we don't want it just to be, adverse effect on our city going forward. We still have large sections of our city that are not yet developed that may be coming to us as a large section again, and we may want to go forward. But I do think it would be wise for us to think about it and not be hit. Someone comes forward and says, here we are, we're ready to go, and we sit back and say, oh, well, we gotta start back over at ground zero, because it's not fair for them, but it's also not fair for us and our residents not to be prepared for something that we probably will have again.
Yeah, and to that, which I think is a very valid point, I mean, and I agree with Dave, I mean, I would not like to have a whole bunch of state
I wouldn't
legislative
either.
prescriptive sorts of terms, but I think that even just this agreement that we've gone through the exercise, I think that will be a huge, I mean, that'll be miles ahead the next time it even needs to be done.
Yeah, I mean, to be perfectly blunt, when this whole thing first started, because it does have to start with the developer.
Right,
The city can't, I mean, it's a developer-initiated contract. So the very first contract we got it almost wasn't even a development agreement. It was kind of written by the contractor and had kind of a bunch of different ideas and
Right.
things. And so then we, worked with our attorneys to kind of say, okay, what are the pieces that should actually be in a development agreement? What should be, the different sections, the different
Mhm.
clauses, all that kind of junk. And once we had a better understanding of that, then we came back to them, and I
Like,
think that's when
going
it
back and
started to
forth.
become a development agreement
right.
that actually, made a little bit of sense.
Had a little more meat to it.
So anyway,
I
it's definitely, what I wanna say is, as tough and as hard as this process has been, had we done this way back with, when Summer Creek first started, with Don and his company, I think we would have been miles ahead. Just because, yes, we had very hard conversations and we had to tell them, we're not interested in you doing that, and they had to say, no, we really want to do that. And they had to come up with their drawings, they had to come up with their plans, they had to come up with their ideas, to codify them in the development agreement, and now that we've had those discussions, we kind of have a better idea of where they're coming from, and they have a better idea where we're coming from.
Mhm.
And so the benefit of it is that we thought that we could, because again, most of us have been on the planning commission. And, you know, I was on the planning commission when Summit Creek was approved. And I remember looking at the plans and thinking, okay, that's what we're gonna get, that's our agreement. And then there were like all these additional things that kind of happened that had nothing to do with looking at the plans. And so I think it was useful to go through the exercise and come to realize that just having a set of drawings in front of you is not sufficient to build a very large subdivision. And they're doing, you know, 200+ acres, so.
Right. And I think that's part of the point that I was trying to make is, there's a very high likelihood that all of us in this room, except for maybe Jody, will not be serving in this capacity in another decade or two when maybe a larger development will come along. And so institutional knowledge will be lost. And so I think it might be prudent that we at least put those steps in, or some of the things that maybe should be included, as future councils may have to deal with it on a different level.
Yeah.
With somebody. And I just brought up the other part because I do not think that as cities we always stand up for less intrusion by the state. But that being said, because the leadership is involved in the development business, there's also a high likelihood that they will keep trying to push their foot in the door. And so I think we need to be prepared one way or the other, but as long as we can maybe start having some sort of a written document that says why it's fresh in everybody's mind, we think these things overall should be included, or thought about next time around, so it's not always starting at ground zero. Just my 2 cents.
I love that because I think you've gone through this process, you've learned a lot, I assume. And if you could document, hey, for the next people who are sitting in our seats that need to go through a developer agreement, how can you expedite that for them? Or put what you've learned into that so that way next time.
I definitely agree that it should happen before subdivision approval.
Mhm.
Like a
Well,
green
and
flag
maybe-
checklist.
Yeah.
And maybe
exactly.
kind of two versions, right? Wayne writes it from the perspective of planning commission and the steps that are involved there, and you write it from position of the legislative body as council, and, you know, the two different roles and how that has to come about, and what should be included, and starting with, okay, first steps are, we at least should do this before this, and just give even if it's a brief outline, I think it would be better than nothing.
Well, I think like in a lot of legal documents, there are treatises that will have, like if you're doing a software license, like it has a list of things that you should consider, and it may be irrelevant in a particular case, but maybe that would be something that would preserve that knowledge that you guys have acquired through your blood, sweat, and tears.
Tears.
So are both sides happy then with the final version?
Well,
Give and take.
like I said, there was some give and take. And there are aspects that, I mean, I'll just give you one that I'm still not 100% comfortable with, and that is, you know, there's a clause in there that essentially excludes Summit Creek from any changes to ordinances that we might make over the next 10, 15, whatever years that they're doing development. And so that's where it
Is that
started.
legal? Because to me, don't think you can hold people accountable for future. Is that legal to do?
Well, it's probably just the development.
Wait a minute, what are you
ordinances, right?
saying?
I mean, if there's an ordinance passed in 5 years and they haven't even started that portion, it seems like the current ordinance should always be the ordinance at the time.
Well, we actually had this conversation with our city attorneys in a little bit different context as to, I mean, because, you know, when you do a plat approval, you know, there's a certain standard that applies, and so is that every ordinance that continues to apply throughout? I mean, because then you have this complete collage of different sovereign nations that have their own sets of rules. And
I
so,
guess you're right.
yeah, I think that,
Okay.
it would, I mean, it
Yeah.
does present some challenges.
The part that I wasn't comfortable with was basically, you know, what if we all of a sudden determine, you know, weather patterns changed, whatever, we're going to get a huge rainstorm every June 14th for the rest of our lives, and we need to develop new culverts to handle that, right? That, I mean, I realize it's a bit of an
A safety
outlandish
issue.
example, but it's an example. And so, where it started with, no, we're not gonna make, you know, the ordinances that are in effect as of the signing of this agreement are the ordinances that we are gonna follow. Now, the reason Summit Creek wants that makes perfect sense. They want stability. They wanna know, what are we dealing with? You know, we're developing this over many, many years. What are we dealing with? We don't want the city throwing a brand new ordinance at us that all of a sudden is going to increase our cost by 10%, 15%, or whatever. So I get their perspective. But I wasn't comfortable with the safety aspect. So where we landed was that applies to city ordinances except those that are imposed upon us by either the federal or state government. So if the state passes a law in 3 years that says every city has to have 20-foot culverts, we can impose that on Summit Creek, but we can't just do it of our own.
So is it just basically chapter 11 ordinances? So the developer side of the ordinance package, or is this, because the residential will apply when they,
When they build
Permit
their home,
for the
yes,
home, okay.
yes, so it's just the subdivision
Yeah.
development aspect.
So the basic infrastructure of the subdivision, then each property owner will have to comply with whatever the ordinance is there at the time that they're building.
That's right. So
Okay,
anyway, that was one of the things that was like,
that makes more
Because they
sense
were a
to
little
me.
frustrated that it was taking so long, so are they better now?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. Before Christmas.
I think so, I get that they were frustrated. I would just say in our conversations, I expressed to them that I was frustrated too. And, you know, I was frustrated, I mean, Ben literally called me every day of the month of December, every day. And yet, the ball was in their court, like, the document was in their attorney's hands, and I mean, you're trying to get me to say when our attorneys are gonna look at it, when your attorney has it, and I don't have it, I don't know. So, I honestly think that was part of the learning process that both sides had to go through, was to understand that, hey, look, this is an agreement that's kinda complex, and, you know, for instance, until we had those roads, deeded back over to them, we really couldn't move forward. So, anyway, there were just a lot of steps that had to take place, and once the
Loose
dominoes
ends,
lined up,
lots of loose ends, right?
yeah, then, once the dominoes kinda started lining up, then I think it went pretty smoothly and pretty quickly.
Okay.
And they haven't done a lot of development agreements either, to be honest, so they weren't familiar with the process.
Well, we get the motivation, like, they wanna make money and they wanna progress and they wanna get their lots sold and get it done.
Well, the
so.
big thing, and I respect this, I understand it, I'm not a builder, I'm not a construction person, but I still understand deadlines and so forth. You know, they were looking at it from the aspect of, hey, we need to hire a crew to come in and start building roads. And they have to plan that out, and spring would have been a great time for them to do that. And yeah, we've missed that window, but
Well, this is the busy time for builders right now.
sure.
And it's still technically spring, so just
It's
saying.
fourth spring.
Yes.
And it's still a bit
They're not
early.
it'll probably be winter again next week, and then
Oh.
it'll be.
They're not planning on building roads up right now, are they?
No, I use that as an example,
Okay.
Corbett, don't fret.
We don't have any subdivisions or anything approved,
No,
so.
process still has to be followed, but
Alright.
I'm just
Yeah,
saying.
it's just that because we're where we are, we have a very short window of time relatively speaking, in the year when work can get done. And so they try to do planning and all of those things when you can't,
want it
when you
first
can't
year,
have a shovel in
right?
the ground, right? And then, so that the second it looks like it might, be spring, then they can start working. So, yeah, we understand that part.
And interest rates are 6+. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
There's that.
yeah, I think all of those play huge roles in, I mean, you know,
And the Fed's meeting
if
tomorrow.
if you're a business
Yeah.
person, you strike when it's hot, right? And anyway, so I think they're less frustrated just because we're closer to the finish line.
Public comment is next. Do we think there's any value in giving the public comment a simpler thing to explain what it is? Or are some of them going to go through it piecemeal and find questions that
This,
that need to be answered?
4.3, I've got it right here. I think they'll have some questions, because it talks about gates, gatehouses, water features, and monuments. Because that's been a topic, a hot topic.
I thought the same.
I'm sitting here reading, I just read through it again, looking at it, and I'm like,
I
yeah.
mean, I just wonder if there's anything we want to, and maybe we don't need to do.
You know, like
Just a.
Cliff
Synopsis.
Cliff
Cliff
notes
Yes,
of
Cliff
public
notes.
yes.
But Dave notes. Can we have Dave notes?
I would be happy to answer anyone's questions. I don't really feel like creating a Cliff Notes version of a contract. That's
I
Scary.
think that could be a bad idea in terms
Yeah.
of its
Yeah, what you leave
interpretation. I mean,
out.
I think that, yeah, I mean, it's got the four corners of the document that I think need to be the first level of interpretation, and not something that we sort of superimpose over it.
Where do the residents find that document to read before the public hearing? Is it attached to the agenda for the 28th, or is it under documents? Jody, if somebody asks us.
Good question. So the planning commission is having their public hearing tomorrow night.
Mm-hmm.
Once the planning commission gets done with theirs, then it will be put under the public hearing.
But if the planning commission is having a public hearing tomorrow night, where is the document
Have the
stashed?
people see it before they.
Yeah,
publish.
is if
My
they're gonna have,
understanding, it should be under documents
okay,
there.
I was gonna,
The only problem is if I go
it's so hard to look under here.
out.
I
let me
don't
just-
see a public hearing document space under documents.
Okay, I've just gotta be careful what I do in this, so I don't go out of my
Right,
other program.
so I was just kinda looking, we can view the agenda, and we can view the agenda PDF, but it doesn't have a packet next to it.
I wondered who C9 was.
That's
Hi,
Steve.
Steve.
So that's what I'm just wondering, I guess there is some sort of a packet for tomorrow's meeting, but it's not under the public hearing, is it?
No, because it's a zip file, and the zip file wouldn't go in. The one that you guys have has all the notes on it.
Right,
We do not have a cleaned up version of it.
so how does the public see it before the public meeting tomorrow night and
Good
or our
question.
public meeting in 2 weeks? Because I really feel that we're going to get some questions, and if they haven't had the opportunity to look at it,
Well,
it
they're
doesn't
welcome to
make-
request it from the city. I mean, that's one thing, is they can request it from the city, and no one has
Right,
called and even raised a question on it.
but it's not, what I'm saying is that if
I
they
understand
went to our website, they would not be able to find it
No.
anywhere on
They
the
would have to call us.
I would think we should just put that in the agenda.
Do you
as
want
part of the
this-
packet.
Do we have a cleaned up version though? Because
Yes.
the version that I gave the mayor tonight has all the notes on it.
We have the red notes.
Yeah, but I think Wayne sent one that was also a clean version.
I thought he sent one of each, didn't he? One
Mhm.
with the red notes and one without.
So maybe we could put that one out there for people who want to know.
Jody, if you need a clean copy, I can get you one. Or David can, think has the last version. He can accept all the changes and remove the comments.
Yeah, Wayne sent one that one's a clean version, one's the, the red line version. I was gonna call it the dirty version, but you know.
Might take that wrong.
So maybe we can get that put on then, so if somebody asks us, we can direct them to the website. So I think people just wanna be able to be at home, look at it, they don't wanna have to make an appointment, come in.
Well, they don't have to make an appointment, all they have to do is send an email. But yes, we can do that.
It's cumbersome.
That's not a problem. We just can't put a zip file on, which means we're gonna have to,
Can we have it with a link to wherever you have it?
What does that mean?
Well, it's not a zip on here, can she put it on, like sometimes our agendas, when we see the online, it will have that little line that we can click on to see the big document.
Yeah, but that's either a PDF or a doc,
Right.
it's not a zip.
Right,
It's
but
not
she
a zip.
says it's in a zip, and that she can't put
because
that
you've got
on.
all the, what we're gonna have to do is
So
we're gonna have
I'm
to take
just-
the Word doc, put it in a PDF, but then you worry about when you convert it, if there's any mistakes to it, and then we'd have to add all the exhibits.
Yeah, can we take that and just combine them all? So create all PDFs and then do a combined PDF and drop them all together and then upload that?
Exactly right.
I can,
Okay,
I can pop
I think simply the answer to that is going to be, it depends on your size restriction because of some of the exhibits are fairly massive in size, so you may be limited that way.
we may be able to pare those down as well, decreasing them.
so you can help with that, Ben?
Yeah,
I just want people to be able to have, we don't wanna make it cumbersome for people to view something that's for a public hearing.
mm-hmm.
Maybe
we
no
pop
one will
over in the
come,
morning?
but
I think I can do it, I'm just gonna have to accept all the changes in it, cause even when I download it, it still comes on with all the red line changes. I'll accept all the changes, then throw them into it, and I'll, yeah.
sorry.
No, we can make it happen. And it should happen, so I agree.
Okay, anything else? All right, thank you, David. Item 4, we are going to table that and item 5. So leaping forward, item 6, Neighborhood Watch. Carrie?
Okay, I'm just writing that table, those two, I was hoping the deputy was gonna be here.
So even though we're tabling it, is item 4 just for enforcement purposes to make it so we can actually enforce whatever it says there?
Parking, towing, and impoundment.
Well, so my understanding is that Craig has recommended that we modify the ordinance so that it allows for, those who are there on site for construction purposes are not violating our ordinance, because that's gonna be a common thing. So but we, and really, one of the things that Jody and I were talking about beforehand is, what is the purpose behind the parking ordinance? And, is it to stop overnight parking? Because if it isn't, we can carve that back and still allow for people that are engaged in, something that requires them to have a vehicle on the side of the road for, 12, 14 hours to still do what they need to do. So, but as far as like specifics, I can't offer you any.
Okay, I just wondered what the purpose of it was. I read through it also, I just wondered.
Okay, yep, that's my understanding. Jody, would you concur with that?
That is, and so in order to change it, we probably need to have a public hearing if we make any modifications to it. And therefore, and the title is a simple thing, we wanna change the title, if we wanna change that, we don't need to hold a public hearing, but on the other items, we do.
Okay.
Okay, so neighborhood watch. Before Deputy Dudson came on, our former deputy and I had been working on maybe revising and revamping our neighborhood watch. We have not had one for a really long time. We haven't had, it kind of disbanded maybe in the early to mid 2000s. I would say. And, it's been a good long time, a couple of decades. And so we were talking again recently about, maybe revitalizing that as a committee, a neighborhood watch. I've had a couple residents who've come to me and who've said, you know, we can help out. There are some things, cause, you know, with our law enforcement contract or in our enforcement officer, there's things that they have to do that are codes, but there are other things that they get called on, like someone's walking on the trail and someone's in my backyard and someone looks suspicious, right? And it may be that if we had a trained neighborhood watch group, that we could organize and have citizens who can just come and check things out first to see if it really warrants an officer there or if it's something that could just be handled. And maybe give another sense of community and people looking. So I was just bringing it to the council so that if we needed to put it on the agenda, that we could authorize the formation of a neighborhood watch.
Do you know why the original one did disband, or is it just a general lack of participation?
Yeah, like all volunteers go up and down and up and down, and I think the people who were kind of running the show probably went on a mission or something, and everybody else said, oh, I don't want to be in charge. We have a lot of people who are willing to be the workers, they just don't always want to be in charge. So, but I think that I found a couple that are willing to do that.
Okay.
And to get the necessary trainings. And, yeah, there's a few people who.
The Taylors, are they one?
They have talked to me about it, yeah. and
Which
so-
Taylors?
Mike Taylor, or which
In
Taylor?
our ward, the Taylors.
There's two on Deep Forest.
Oh,
there's
the
Dave
ones
and
that are
Wendy,
just
and then
building,
there's
the ones
Yeah,
that are
the
just
one that are
building.
building.
Dave and Wendy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because he's talked to me about some things before and so I think that there are several people throughout this city that are willing now to,
The other Lutz,
mhm.
I get a lot of messages from him.
Oh,
And, the other night, somebody was at the park and they had their lights on, shining into the park to light up the park.
They
And,
could play or whatever.
yeah,
Try
and
their
whatever,
hard.
and it was noisy and anyway,
Yeah.
he was concerned and I
And I
get
think
the
those are the
messages.
kinds of things that, that if we had neighborhood watch, they could, you know, look at the park, or look at the switchback trails, or look over at Dora's backyard to see who's walking there, or some of the other people who live over there, that for some reason, everybody thinks, we've been putting in the newsletter for the last few times, just because it's the woods doesn't mean it's public property. And I think that's one thing that people, especially those who live outside of our city, forget. They just think, oh, I'm gonna go up into the woods and live in the hills and walk around. I'm not at somebody's house, I'm here over by myself, and that they don't realize it is your backyard. And so, that's part of the conversation that came up, so I just would like permission to put that on the agenda for next meeting to officially start organizing so they could meet and because summertime is a lot of activity in our city. And I think that it would greatly help the deputies not to get the calls that are not really an infraction, they're more of a nuisance. And,
I think, my opinion is, if we're gonna organize any committee, not just neighborhood watch, we ought to do it the way we've done the other committees, starting with a charter. What are they going to do, what are they not going to do?
right,
And then let that be the start.
Yep.
So, and then we can worry about the people to plug in.
right. I'm thinking that there are a few people though that I think would wanna be involved and would be willing to write that charter so that we can adopt it, if maybe, or change it next council meeting. So I'm just requesting that we put on the agenda, we come forward with a proposal with that charter and the ability to at least start meeting. I think I talked with Craig a little bit too. I mean, fire department could always use a little extra help for the month of July when we have the threats of fireworks, etc. They really do a good job in getting out and patrolling, but a few other people on board might be helpful.
I'm in favor.
Hey, I will go forward with that then.
Can we get their help for Woodland Hills Days too?
Probably.
I know
For
you
parking
can,
and
so-
traffic and, some of those things.
Crowd control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Carrie, I would suggest you maybe talk to Jim Innes again.
He's the one who did the original one, he is in the city and.
Yep, I remember
Very-
Jim.
Very knowledgeable. yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is he former LEO or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, good. All right, anything else on that?
No, sounds good.
Okay. Item 7, waste management contract. Ben?
Yeah, this is a good one. Did we send that contract out by
Yeah.
chance?
But
Got it.
Okay.
They're
So-
gonna lower their rates. That's the gist of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Cause
So-
they're expensive to have.
Exactly. So I finally got this contract on Sunday morning, and it is due to be signed in the next couple of weeks. So we have to make a decision. I'm a little frustrated by that timing, but it is what it is. He and I kind of played phone tag for a while and email tag, but here's the gist of it. In short, this year for our first trash can, they are charging us $8.57. The next contract will be at $9.33. We currently are, for the first garbage can, charging our residents $13. So we're still going to be net positive there. The second can we're currently charging, or the second, third, fourth, fifth, for the city to our residents is $12. They're currently charging us $4, and then that will jump to $4.35. Also, not bad at all. Recycling currently for the first recycling can is $13.10, and any additionals also $13.10. That's going to $14.26. We currently are charging $13. Now that's not actually as bad because our tipping fees at the transfer station are going down coming this next fiscal year because we're starting to make money at the transfer station for recycling for the first time ever right now, because when the economy tanks like it is, recycling actually then goes up because it becomes cheaper than raw materials, and it's actually now cost effective. So people are buying our recycling, and we're getting cleaner recycling as well, which helps.
The silver lining to the economy tanking.
It's crappy.
I mean, this paragraph right here, I like highlighted that, that's very gloom and doom. Did you guys read that?
Mm-hmm.
Since World War II. Yeah.
It's pretty awesome. Now, so to wrap this all up, I spoke with Blake today, and I negotiated him down to keeping the exact same rates, but only requiring a 24-month contract instead of a 36, which I personally believe is a better deal for them. But it'll also give us the flexibility, or we can leave it at the 36 if we want. It comes down to whether we want to try and do garbage ourselves. In speaking with him, he tried his best to talk me out of it completely, obviously. He said it cost us about $1 million to get into the garbage industry, which from Corbett and I's numbers, that's not even close. He said from a ballpark standpoint that they would be willing to let us buy all the garbage cans from them at $70 a pop. That'll cost around $70,000 to buy all of them currently. Corbett, when he received the bid back in 2017, they were at $45.50. $45.15, and that was with a 12-year warranty on them each, which we're not going to get from Waste Management. So it's cheaper to just buy brand new cans because they've probably now gone up to, let's be conservative, at $60, you know. So cans, we
Is
can
it
figure it out.
$60 for a replacement can? Because how many replacement cans do we do in the city every month?
Well, 60 replacement can, we'd need to buy all new cans. If we do our own, because Waste Management owns all the cans.
Right, what
currently
I'm
in the
saying
city.
is, right now, people request a replacement can for all sorts of reasons, right?
Correct.
And we need to factor that in on how
Correct.
many we would need extra, how many do we get
We
requests
would
for?
need to have a surplus also to just be able to cash in on warranties and all of those types of things, which we'll need to do all the math on. What was it, 2 months ago, Corbett, we saw a garbage truck that sold on auction for $15,000. He told me a brand new garbage truck's $500,000, okay? So there's our Delta. This garbage truck was in excellent condition. It was a demo truck. So a company that was using it, and I believe it was in Colorado, but it had been demoed in Arizona. So it wasn't salty, it wasn't abused by winters. And it went for $15,000. Corbett did a search today. There was 193 potential garbage trucks, not all of which we would use, because some of them were forklifts for big dumpsters, others were backload. We need a side load arm. And there was still quite a few of those. So that is a possibility. The only thing is before we can really start crunching numbers, I kind of need a feel here. What are your guys' thoughts? Do you want to just renew this contract for 2 years? And so we have a little bit more time to go through it. One of the biggest risk factors that he loved to try and point out to me that we'd never be able to achieve is maintenance. That if we're buying a used truck, it's obviously going to just break down instantly. If that does occur, which is always potentially possible, we've got some recent experience on that, we will know, well, one, I've talked to Mayor Kafusi, and she is very, very interested in allowing us to have a contract in place with her to be able to, for a rate, rent a truck from them if ours is down. So we have that backup in place, potentially. We need to flush out all those deals, those terms. But also then we do have an in-house, mechanic that could help with that potentially. So there is some good profitability there. With these new numbers, I haven't run them completely. Last year, we paid Waste Management around $90,000. We collected from our residents around 110-ish. So we were making some money on garbage. That $90,000 to Waste Management is purely transportation, because we then get billed from the transfer station for our garbage there. So Waste Management isn't taking on that fee. That's not part of the $90,000. And so that's kind of the options. We'll need to work on, what would that look like from a driver's standpoint. I would assume we could potentially use our current staff
dryers?
or snowplow drivers. We would need to get a CDL for that. CDL costs have gone up recently.
Don't do that to the snowplow drivers.
No, I'm just saying if they wanted to, they
If
could
they
sign in,
wanted
because
to.
they're already CDL, they're already,
It's 1 day a week.
they know how to drive our
Another
roads.
benefit here is the fact that 1 day a week, we would be able to guarantee which day of the week that is. So we could leave it on Tuesday, and having a holiday on Monday won't shift it for the whole city, and we won't have to get the word out because we'll only be picking up for ourselves. Another option is we can, if it ends up working, we would then be able to potentially partner from an ownership standpoint with other cities. If we partner with other cities, they would then be able to, partner with us so that we're both owners in the garbage side of it, so that we're not then competing illegally with a private entity. Our gas prices also, we do not pay tax on gas, and typically gas on garbage trucks is, or at least the ones we were looking at, is a natural gas, so we'd fill it up once a month or so. So there's some real big opportunity, but I kind of want to know, what is everybody's thoughts here, feelings? Do you want us to hurry and chase down numbers and get some hard data for us?
Before renewing, right? I mean, that's really the pivot point that we're at, right now, is
Exactly.
whether or not to renew.
And that's what we're working on here is, I wish I had had this contract earlier. And partially that's on me, and partially it was them dragging their feet getting it to me, so.
Probably a strategic place, so we wouldn't get our own garbage.
I think potentially. I'm not sure if they, I had told them a week ago about us potentially looking at it, hence they gave me more information and numbers. But yeah, Dora.
They, let's not miss any other things we'd have to cover. We get those, brush bins, as many as we want at $50 a crack in the fall.
Yes.
But those aren't from Waste Management.
Yes,
but
they are.
I thought they were from.
No, they're from the
Waste
transfer
Management.
station.
They're from the transfer
Transfer
station.
station.
But we'd have to haul those too, probably, I don't know.
No, Terry will take care of
I
that.
thought
Yeah,
those
that's
came
from, no, they're from the transfer, cause we put that in the newsletter.
We called Waste Management when we ordered the last ones, so watch out, just talk to Craig.
Yeah, Craig told me
Don't
that they
forget
were,
about it if,
yeah, that they came from
because
South
their
Valley.
first quote to us was $250 a pop.
Yeah,
And then we went around and talked to somebody else who got it for much less.
yeah, our bills are from the transfer station for those.
Yeah,
So, but if the waste management was our transportation, we need to look at
Just
it.
check that.
Yeah.
We'll verify.
because Craig gave me the notice to put that in the newsletter, and he said to thank them because other people were charging so much, and that we were getting them from South Valley.
Yeah, just see if they transport
Mhm.
them.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. So,
As green waste.
let's not forget anything, is all
Yeah.
I'm saying.
I think
Well, I have
that,
a question. So to me, it sounds like there's a lot of moving pieces. So
There are.
my initial sense is that we should renew and that we should certainly be moving in this direction. But what's the option if we don't renew? It's just a month-to-month fee? Or does Waste
That's a good
Management
question.
cut us loose?
They need to know from an asset allocation standpoint. I think if we do not renew, they do not show up,
Okay.
right?
I think we should be good then.
My-
I mean,
my
the 2 year versus the 3, I guess, is the big question.
Correct.
And we could probably pull this off in 2 years if it does work out, or at least we know.
Easily.
Let me just say this. My biggest concern is I feel like this is a cart before the horse thing. Because we don't really have any room to store the equipment that we currently have or take care of the equipment we currently have. And we've talked about having a public works building that we could actually put the equipment in and, maintain it in and wash out the salt trucks in, and,
add on to this building to do all
snow
that.
plowing
I'm like, we
is
have a plan for that.
We have a
already
plan.
of, I've talked to a lot of the snowplow drivers and, most of the snowplow drivers are doing it out of service, not out of money.
Correct.
They feel like they're doing a service to the community, and that's good. And I really, really appreciate their approach to that. I'm just concerned, now you take on garbage, that's why I said, don't put it on the snowplow drivers, please. Because.
Well, I think it would be, if we did have volunteer drivers, they would sign up for it. It's not that we would say, because you're this, you're now this.
Yeah,
I think it would still be, ask and see who
It's-
shows up.
Snowplowing was a huge undertaking to get up and running.
100% agree with you.
I think this will be too, if not worse.
Well, the
And
only
I really
difference
think
I would
it's gonna
argue,
come down to us having to hire, city employees to do it. I don't think you'll do it. I do too.
Yeah, no, I think that would.
Community members.
Yeah, but the snowplow service, I mean, they're taking that in-house, but I really do see that as a good move, so I think.
I do too.
Yeah.
I just, like I said, I think if we had a public works building, I might be a little less hesitant. Right now, I just feel like, oh, great, now we're gonna have, in addition to the tractor, the snow plow, big, orange one out here, we're gonna have a dump truck too,
Well, and you're gonna have extra cans, where are you gonna store those?
and extra cans, and anyway, I just don't think we're ready, if I'm being blunt. That's
so
my
the
concern.
only pushback, and I agree with you, in the sense of that there is some logistics and moving parts here. If we can take on garbage, it potentially could help pay for said building, which is one of the benefits and maybe the difference between, say, this and snow plowing. We're not looking to cut costs, we're looking to generate revenue. Versus snowplow is just about cost.
Mhm.
And so that would be my only kickback is, I agree with you 100%. Corbett and I have spoken much about how do we, shift and move the salt sheds. I know that the Davis Ranch developers are potentially wanting to buy that piece of land, and there's a shift there, and that could potentially then give us the storage that they're building it, and there are a lot of moving pieces. That's my frustration here with the delay and the expedition of this contract renewal. And the sky is falling,
But it's not a bad thing to have a long runway. I I mean,
Correct.
so I think that, you know, we don't wanna be scrambling, trying to figure things out. I mean, on the one hand, I think that it could, you know, allow it to languish where we kinda forget about it, like, oh, we got 2 years.
It'd be like the New York garbage workers strike. They only strike in the summer.
Only when it stinks.
Well played.
Now, I guess the question is then, and maybe this is a Jody question. Jody, who has to approve for this renewal? Is this just the mayor,
Yeah, I mean.
or does the
it would be-
council?
It would be good for the council too, yeah.
Okay.
It's a contract you guys are entering into.
Oh, Chris is here.
Yeah, it's a contract you're entering into. You probably should all vote on it.
Okay.
But that,
Corbett's raising his
another,
hand.
oh, okay, Corbett, and then after you're done, I have
The
another.
the only concern I have is we kick this can down the road, and not that we have to do it at all, or even do it tonight, or before the contract expires, but if we don't plan to take this on in 2 years, you're still not gonna have a place to park the trucks. You're still not gonna have, you know, you're still not gonna be in a position to do it, and so, you know, are we gonna have a plan forward to try to do this, or are we just gonna kick it down the road and then be in the same spot in 2 years?
I agree.
I think if we renew this for two years, then I think that means you and I have a deadline. And we
Well,
look at build
but that
it.
deadline takes, because it takes money.
Correct. And that's the hardest part is, you know, if we pull the trigger and do it ourselves, then we have a way to get some money. Or we need to scrimp and save from everywhere that we don't have to find this. Or we talk with the Davis Ranch people and potentially acquire some land that we're hoping to acquire. It's just it's a fun game.
Right, well, and to me, that seems like that would be, not the Davis Ranch property, although that's, the storage of it is a big piece of it, but I think that we could do this incrementally and, you know, look at the financial feasibility of it, in terms of getting, I mean, I think that we could work a plan
100%
out,
agree with you.
but I mean, it would have to cover all those angles for sure, but I don't see that as being an insurmountable, sort of a hurdle that we would
Okay.
necessarily get hung up on.
Then I will take that as a move forward to work on that plan with
Yeah.
Corbett.
That'd be great.
And then I would say, do we have I haven't checked later on in the agenda, do we have a vote for this?
We do.
Perfect. Then I think we probably, well, when we get to that point, I'd say let's do it for 2 years and, because that's the shortest he could give me. Was a 2-year contract versus a 3.
Have you talked to our city attorneys about the contract? Because I do have some trepidation signing
I have not.
anything that has not been reviewed by legal.
I have not. We still
Yes.
have some time.
Okay,
I would say if we wanted to, we could propose signing it with the contingency on attorney approval.
yeah, I'd like to do that just because, I mean, you know, like with any agreement, you know, there may be omissions that, because we're inexperienced, we just wouldn't even see.
I completely agree. I didn't know if I even had the ability to contact the attorney.
Well, go easy, they're not cheap.
Not really. Your
I'll-
15 minutes.
I'll
is-
send it to you and you can send it to him. How about that?
Fair enough.
Okay, that's enough for me then.
Okay, thank you. That sounds very exciting. Thanks for all your work on that.
It's Corbett.
Thanks, Corbett. Okay, Utah County Sheriff's contract, Deputy Dudson, not here.
He actually had to go to Cedar Fort.
Okay.
Fairview? Oh, Fairview.
Yeah, well, and that contract is also in the hands of our attorneys. They're reviewing it just to make sure there's,
So we're tabling that?
yeah, I don't have anything to,
I read through it and I don't see a price hike. At $75 an hour, 25 hours a week is so much a month and it's 90,000 a year. So I'm trying to figure it out.
Well, we're not paying 90,000 right now a year.
Well, that's what we budgeted. It's what.
That's what we budgeted for next fiscal year.
yeah, in
Yeah.
anticipation of
What did we
that
put,
price.
89 in the last one? It was high, like it was 92 one year.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not, it's been more than 90 in the past, at least that we budgeted.
Yeah, I think this last year came in less than what we budgeted for, right?
So,
Well, actually, Chris,
so this is the numbers I sent to Brent. It says, it looks like the new police contract is a yearly increase of $24,699.96. This year we are paying $68,900 to next year's $93,600.
Wow.
So it's about a 24% increase?
Well, I've just seen 92 in our budget, like for more than 1 year in the past, but that's okay.
I was
That's an
talking
increase.
I was talking to some of the other cities about if how much their increase is. And some of them, it's over 25% increase just to have status quo for law enforcement, because it's just a big hike. I talked with the mayor of Salt Lake City. I mean, they're a big city. Their budget had to be increased by 21 million for the next year, just for law enforcement.
So is it
And so,
wages
so
or
every,
fuel or
it,
both?
well, it's wages, because wages
Fuel.
are coming up, it's
Everything.
fuel, it's also retention. Because right now, Utah County deputies get paid less than even like Spanish Fork cops. So if you're trained in one area and then someone else offers you $5 more an hour, you just shift over, and pretty soon you've lost all that money you spent on training and everything else. So they're trying to balance between having a competitive wage and retention with benefits, et cetera, to keep them on board for a while.
Well, and the job's gotten a lot
And it's
harder.
gotten a lot harder.
Yeah, who wants it?
That is a tough job.
They're having a hard time getting guys into post, because they're just looking at it going, you know, one wrong move and your whole life is over and you're the one in jail.
yeah.
I can be a software programmer, or I can get shot at.
I'd like Ben to build our own cop system.
I'm on it, okay, I need a head, so let me write some notes.
I mean,
But yeah, I think that, you know, for what we get, you know, I think we're getting a pretty reasonable rate, and we have security out of all the things in the city that people really, really care about, it's that they're secure. You know, that we have a good fire
and when
department
they
and we have law
don't feel
enforcement.
secure,
Uh-huh.
they tell us.
Well, I just think of even the services, sorry, Janet, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, I've been hearing from people around the park, they're, you know, it's summertime, they're frustrated.
I know.
But again, is it a law enforcement issue or is it a nuisance? And that's why I brought up the other part about the neighborhood watch. So that we can separate the two, and that there is a mechanism in place that residents can call for nuisance things versus a criminal activity. Because we want them to feel secure in all aspects.
Yeah.
And I agree in terms, like Ben, you and I talked a little bit about pushing back. I mean, I would have no metric to say this is too much. I mean, because it's certainly consistent with what's going on elsewhere. I mean, we can try, but you know, it's one of those things where it's like, it doesn't hurt to ask, but it's not like I can come at them really hard and say, there's no way we're paying this.
Every single mayor I've talked to in the last little few weeks have said that's their number one increase is law enforcement in their cities.
Yeah,
That's not our number one increase.
I know,
Brent,
right.
I'd rather have theirs.
an idea is, I wonder how much it would cost us, cause I know that Summit Creek has their Strider security that's there like pretty much all the time.
Yeah,
How much would it cost us to hire that company to just go and make patrols around the park?
About 80. What? Probably less.
Periodically, you know, once or twice an hour.
yeah, I mean, we can certainly ask.
I mean, I'm just looking at,
And what is
I
their
see
ability
neighborhood
to?
watch. Neighborhood watch is kind of a long game, cause it's gonna take a while to get set up. I'm just wondering, you know, like if we said, hey, could we have 6 months worth of, you know, an hour of your day where you just drive around the park, and if you see something suspicious, you let them
Call
know.
it in.
Yeah, call it in.
Cause they don't have the ability to do anything,
Right.
right? Or would they even get out of their car and question people, or would they just say, that looks suspicious, and call? I don't know how it works. I see them all the time on Summer Creek just sitting in the car, but I don't know what they're doing.
I think the
Following us
presence is
sometimes.
probably,
If it's just the presence, yeah.
That's what I would
But
assume.
because they're
is-
there all the time, not just driving by, I think that's the deterrent.
Yeah, I mean, and they're basically on the only way in and out too, so I mean, but you wouldn't really have that with a park patrol, but, I mean, you know, we can certainly ask and see if that would be, something that, you know, whether it's Strider or whether it's some other,
Or we buy a car and we offer to let people drive around. When I say buy a car, I mean buy a car with lights and with, you know, official looking stickers.
One of the things,
Yeah.
that we were talking about on our last neighborhood watch was when people were on duty, they would have those magnet things that go on their car. So it would say neighborhood watch, so as it drove around, people would know they're there to patrol. And, we have the ability to get those, and then, people, they would just be, you know, here at the city center or whatever, and people could put them on their cars, just an idea. But that's one of the things that came up, because I was on the committee last time around. And so, that's one thing that at least shows that you have a presence.
yeah.
I think for me, this contract, the only thing that that made me do research and text the mayor was basically, it was like, they raised the rates and the way we're being charged. Both of those together, I was like, because if it's a rate, and maybe I'm just wrong here, and I believe,
I asked
If it's-
Deputy Dutson about that, and he talked to the county attorney, and apparently that's the fee structure that.
so we're
has been-
currently
yeah,
hourly.
That's how
Yeah,
it is.
that's how it is
Okay.
currently.
So if we get an excessive amount of calls, will
Yeah,
that
yeah.
rate go up?
Well,
Or if we
no,
don't,
what he said
will
would
that
have
rate
to
go down?
happen is if we exceed the 25 hours, then they would have to come to us and say, we gotta renegotiate this contract because
Okay.
you're getting a windfall.
So they're not gonna just start dinging us
No,
hourly
there's,
over, okay.
there's no provision for that. The one thing, and I think it was you, Carrie, that mentioned this, like when we did the evacuation and the sheriff, although that was funded through something else you mentioned to me, but
Yeah,
but that was one thing that had me a little concerned, like if there was, you know, something that necessitated a lot of extra time that was way beyond 25 hours a week. But again, Deputy Dutson and Carrie mentioned that that was funded through some other source. And then Deputy Dutson also allayed my concerns in that by saying that it's not like you suddenly jump to a premium rate. It's more the county has to come in and say,
you have an
You can't do this.
interlocal agreement with them anyways for extenuating circumstances too.
Perfect, I'm good then.
okay. All right, well, we're not voting on it tonight anyway, so I hope you're good I hope you're good in 2 weeks.
We'll see, you never know with me.
All right. Then if no further comments or questions on that, we'll move on to city council reports. Ben, Councilmember David.
So with the transfer station, not much has really changed. We had a meeting, we talked, you know, about just the refining of the budget, so nothing to really bring forth here except for that recycling is going down. So that'll help us. And we worked on logos and colored palettes for the building.
Very nice, I can't wait to see it.
The new, I should have brought them. The new name will be the Dry Creek Transfer Station. So instead of, what is it, SUBSWD Transfer Station, you can call it just the Dry Creek Transfer Station. So
Way better brand.
much better. So that's it.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Okay,
Terrible
Count.
acronym.
Oh,
It's the worst.
you.
Instead of working on colors, can you work on the acronym?
No, the acronym now is, it's the bank, you know, they have to keep that acronym for checks to be deposited, and the LLC, and they got their attorneys looking at the DBA potential for Dry Creek, and can people write checks out now to Dry Creek instead? So they are working on it, but we're stuck with SUBSWD.
I can skip the attorney, yes, they can do a DBA, and yes, they can write a check to the DBA, it's easy. Anyway,
Done. Perfect.
Just go to the
Unless
bank.
there's another Dry Creek
Set up
transfer
an
station,
account.
because then, that's in my wheelhouse, you gotta be careful there. So,
If there's another Dry Creek transfer station, we've got bigger problems, because
We got another fight.
It'll be good.
All right, thank you. All right, Doral.
All right, I attended a meeting in person on May 12th. This is my favorite group in the county
I'm so glad it's yours.
because they control our lives. They send us into dangerous situations, and I really like our dispatch crew down there. As I went in and sat down, I'm sitting with old friends, just people that I knew that are in that meeting. They brought up the budget, they discussed it for a few minutes and passed it unanimously for this coming year. They're training 6 new people, and for the first time ever that I can remember, they've had no employee loss this year. And that's an incredible
wow.
thing. That's incredible
Yeah.
for dispatchers. And I tried to figure out why, and as I looked around down there, their current leadership is a little different than the past ones. And they're doing some interesting things, like they'll have their employees help develop the policies they're under. And so it's got buy-in, and so the employees down there are happy. And so, and it's hard to keep dispatchers because of the stress and so on. So you go in their room down there, I got a tour, Ben, you missed out.
That new building is
It
nice.
is a cool
Really
building.
nice.
To the right, they have a weight room where they can work out, work off some stress. Next to that room, they have a dark room with couches and stuff, and they can close the door and be in the dark and just rest. So they thought of everything. I was impressed. They're having some.
I wanted that.
You can't have it, Ben. It's the greatest. And so they, what was I gonna tell you? They have some issues with Provo and Orem, because when Provo and Orem
I do too.
get to the 20-second call to 911, those calls go to these guys. And they had a suicide, a cardiac arrest, and a grinder blew up. The 22nd, 23rd, 24th call that came to our county dispatch, and to get it squared around and going to the right people that can help takes time. And so those 3 calls were all delayed as examples. And so they're pushing Provo and Orem to get more phone lines. It just build up, you're not handling the calls. And so they're making progress on that. So while that's going on, we're adding a 4th law paging system. So they have law 1, 2, and 3. They're gonna go to a law 4 as well. So that's positive. So I think our crew down there is really keeping up with growth and doing a good job. I got to see it, took pictures for the first time of the paging hardware that pages us. I love that kind of stuff because I have 20 years of this and I've never seen that. So, and when I went, there were 3 of us starting at the same time for this board. Other people were being replaced as well. So it was fun to take a tour with 4 of us. I recommend that you, especially you, Carrie, tell people that they can get tours of this place. Like high school age kids would really, really appreciate going in there and seeing what these people do and the tools they have to do 911. They'll take you right inside, you can watch calls happen.
I can't remember why I went on the tour, but I did.
Yeah, you ought to as
I
emergency
did,
manager.
yeah, I went on
You
it.
need to,
Right when
and
it first
I wanna
opened.
go again
It was
and
great.
get the more detailed tour.
I have a
but-
request.
So,
Jody, she wants to know if they can have a room to de-stress.
you want a weight room or a quiet room, Jody?
She wants a quiet room.
She wants a dark corner,
A dark room that she could shut the door in the
you
night.
know?
I do have a question for you, Doral. On this next month, the 988 number goes national. And that's actually started here in Utah with the ability to have a 3-digit number for suicide hotline. Now, each state gets to determine where those calls go. A lot of them will be going to mental health facilities, but some of them will go directly to a dispatch that will then go to somewhere else. Have they discussed that at all for Utah?
I've never heard of it.
So 988 is coming online, each state will do it, and I thought they said each city would have to pay in to it based on population, like we pay into 911. But I haven't heard anything, and I was kind of wondering, have we heard anything as a city about any potential bill? Or maybe the legislature covered it for the first year, I have no idea, but I know that's something that is coming online in the next little few weeks, so. But it's 988, and it started here in Utah and went national. Senator Hatch and Representative Stewart took that national, and it's gonna be a really great thing, but I didn't know if our dispatch will be handling those calls as
I've
well.
not heard of that
Maybe
yet.
you can ask them at your next
They,
meeting.
they canceled the June meeting, but we'll have one in July.
Yeah,
so
if you'll ask them, that
I
would be
will,
great.
okay. Do I have anything else? I don't think so, but I was saying, invitations to tour down there for small groups, they're happy to do it.
Okay.
And it's quite educational for, if you have troubled teenagers, man, I think you should take them in there. You know, it's whatever, it's just a good environment to see how we handle crises in our county, or in our city too. That's all.
Great, thank you. All right, South Utah Valley Animal Shelter, Janet.
So we didn't have a meeting this time, but on Thursday, we're going to pick up a check. We're meeting at Petco. They got some grant funds to do some improvements on the facility, so we're meeting for a photo op on Thursday. And I was just gonna comment that it's kind of interesting because it's all police chiefs and the vet and me. So first I walked in, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I don't know if I should be in this
Cool.
room.
I don't know how you were, but the time I walked in, I was like, I'm the only one in this room without a gun.
No, I haven't.
I did.
I have one, so I feel fine. But anyway, yeah, it's a little intimidating, but it's good. And then I know it's not on there, but I just did want to just mention our trail maintenance for PTR, if that's okay. On Saturday, we met around 7:30. We all went up, we started at the top, and the first thing that we did, and Ben did a lot of the work for that, was we installed a bench for Jeff Berger. And we don't have the plaque yet, but we're gonna do that after, but we did get the cement set. Holes dug. We had about 14 people there when we first started. A couple of them came for the bench and then didn't stay for the work. But I think we had about 10 people that stuck it out till the bitter end, working on the trail. So we did some maintenance on the water bars, and I was kind of with the front people. I was leading out front trying to get it done, but we didn't have pickaxes, so Ben was on the back end with quality control and making sure it was done right, and they kind of fixed up what we started and got it done, so.
Between Sherry and Whitney, we got it done.
Yeah, no, that's great, that's a no small project, so thanks for
That's cool.
getting that
And
done.
I was really happy with the turnout, actually.
Yeah,
We had so many people, it was good.
no, that's good, I'm glad you brought that up.
So that's all I've got.
Okay.
That was
thank
great. And we'll put the pictures, I'm gonna make sure to put those pictures in the newsletter, next newsletter. For the summer, we're just doing one newsletter a month at the first week, and then doing for the whole month. So I did wanna say that if you have anything that needs to be in the newsletter, give it to me the last week of the month, so that it can go in the first week of the next month. So, I'm gonna put switchback pictures on my list. And dispatch tours.
And you're kind of on a roll, so why don't you
Yeah.
just segue right into the South Utah Lake Commission?
I know that's just a copy and paste error, because it's not just the south part of the lake that we do anything on, it's the whole lake.
Correction, whole Utah Lake Commission.
I
It
think
says
it
Utah
says
Lake
Utah Lake.
Commission.
I know, but it just
South
says
Valley.
South Utah Lake.
Online it says Utah Lake Commission and,
Oh, what I got, I put in from earlier, it has it right.
Yeah, so I just thought that was funny because it's when we actually are having our board meeting tomorrow, and so, there's lots of things to talk about there, but, I'll wait to report till next time on the Lake Commission. I did have a call from, Craig. You know, he does a lot of the maintenance for, and has people help with maintenance around the city building and some parts around the park, and especially with the sprinkler system, and he was wondering if, well, kind of two thoughts. We need some help with, beautification at around the mailbox area and the roundabout. Those are two areas that in the past citizens have donated their time and have kept up, namely the Lawrences. And they are no longer able to do that, and so we were wondering, he and I were talking, do we need to reform, which again is a committee of the past, the beautification committee that handles things like that, which would do the city center, the roundabout, and the mailboxes, keep the weeds down, keep the bushes trimmed, you know, et cetera, put up the lights at Christmas, et cetera, or would that fall under PTR? And that
I was
committee.
afraid that you were gonna say
So
that.
I told him
It
that,
seems natural.
I mean, I still have a blister.
so I wanted
that
to
falls
bring,
under Janet's side of PTR.
yeah, beautification, obviously not your side.
Exactly.
He's got ordinance right now,
So I just wanted to bring that up. Craig wanted us to talk about it and kind of, I mean, we were talking about other emergency management things and that came up.
So maybe we should add that to future council.
Well, I
agenda
just wanted
items.
to know from, just in general here, before we add it to agenda, if we need to restructure, again, and write a charter, blah, 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 for beautification committee, or could this be a subcommittee of PTR?
That's what I was just gonna say, can we make it a subcommittee and have different people that are over it?
Uh-huh.
I'd
I
be
think
okay
so.
with that.
Subcommittee,
Uh-huh.
beautification. We've
And
got
then I
few
don't
already.
think we need a whole new charter and all of that, it could just be direction from the
We
PTR
don't have a
committee.
ton of people on PTR.
Right,
We've had a little bit of a, but I think we've kinda got that set now and hopefully we'll, I've reached out to a few people to see if they wanna join. People that like to complain about the trail. I'm like, well, then you should join PTR and do something
well,
about it, right?
I think the same could happen with beautification, right, is there are some people who tend to like to do those, you know, trim bushes and plant flowers. I'm not one of them, but I know people who do. And so, there may be people in town that we could say, we need this done weekly or monthly, and your committee could assign people to do whatever needs to be done.
I mean, if you're giving me permission, it'll be done by tomorrow. No, just kidding.
But I think that, I
It
think
needs
we
some
could,
flowers
I
or
don't think we
something.
need a vote on it if we're going to just have it as a subcommittee. PTR can just organize that.
Okay,
And start
well,
getting to work. Whenever, tomorrow was fine.
But
since that's not an agenda item, though, I mean, we do need to be careful that we don't
Well-
delve too deeply on that unless you wanna bring it up at the next council meeting. I mean,
Well,
I'm just
I'm
thinking
just
that-
saying that, I don't think it needs a vote, cause PTR is already a committee, and they have the ability to form a subcommittee.
Okay,
With
well, if
that,
that's all there is to it, then.
I think their leadership could form the subcommittee and
Right,
organize
sure.
and figure it out.
so we have a meeting next week. Oh, look at that.
Sherry's on it.
I mean, she's in charge, so, okay.
Her right.
Thank you, Sherry.
That's why I
Yes.
think that we don't really need to do any action. If we were doing a separate committee, we would, but if it's just under them, they have the ability to
But-
figure it out.
So my little banker brain,
Uh-huh.
do we have money for that, or does that have to come out of what we don't really have for PTR?
I don't, do we already have a budget at all for maintenance? I mean, under maintenance, would we be able to use anything?
Could we you know what I mean,
Yes.
Because we have,
Yeah, we have maintaining, I mean, like, maintaining the city center, and we've got a budget to do the roundabout and things like that, so I
What,
wouldn't
flowers, we have budget.
I
see.
think Chris is wanting to help us out here.
Yeah, we have a general budget for parks, maintenance and those kind of things.
Cause I'm just saying the roundabout could use like some flowers or something. It needs something.
Needs some beautification.
It's overgrown and it needs some fresh plants in there. I've thought that for a while.
Yeah.
It's been bothering me.
It needs to be trimmed too to get some sight lines improved.
Yes,
around the
for
roundabout.
sure.
Okay,
Okay, that's all I needed to know. I just didn't
Thank
want
you.
the expectation to be for it to come out of PTR's budget because we don't have much of one. So, that's all.
All right, anything else, Carrie? Okay. Dave, speaking of terrible acronyms,
Oh, yeah.
Why are you making fun of my acronym?
Hey, it's not my acronym, okay, I just said it.
It's yours now.
Anyway, yeah, I agree, it's a terrible acronym.
Mwah.
I never know how to say it.
Mwah.
Sumbois.
Sumo.
Anyway, yeah, we met this last week in person. It was a 45-minute meeting to do 5 minutes worth of business. We passed the budget and we passed the consent agenda and we were done. So, anyway,
perfect.
I mean, there's a lot of activity that they're doing, but it's all with other cities at this point, because we kind of bowed out of the water allocation. But they're doing some really interesting things, doing a lot of construction. Salem Canal Road will be closed, and it's because of this, so, anyway.
That's that strawberry pipeline, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So,
That's
anyway,
a good thing. Okay, great, thank you.
Corbett has a hand.
Oh,
You know, you still pay into that. There's an assessment on your taxes for the South Utah Valley, or for the
Water.
water. Are you, is there a way to get rid of that? Yeah, the Central Utah Water Conservation District, is there a way to get out of that?
Is that somebody
No,
needs to
that-
call the county and have it pulled off our property tax?
No, I think that, because that arrangement
that's to pay
happened,
for the district,
that's to pay for the
not
district
necessarily the
itself.
water.
But the district doesn't benefit Woodland Hills by bowing out.
I think we signed, I'm trying to think back when that first happened, I mean, which was a long time ago,
2005.
That's what,
that,
3 mayors ago?
It was under Mayor Harding, and
well, I'm
we
gonna,
pay into it because we were part of the district, and that is our property tax for it.
and that's
So,
at Central Utah Water, right?
Central Utah
I have a
Water
meeting at their building tomorrow, maybe I'll
Conservation,
ask,
solid- Yeah,
That'd be good.
Yeah.
if anyone's there, I am there, I'll ask.
But if you're not benefiting from it, is there a reason that you're still paying into it?
Maybe we can get a refund.
yeah, no kidding.
Don't let that get out.
Okay, well, thanks, Corbett.
Because we don't pay as a city, each property owner pays on their property bill, yeah.
So,
Maybe they should do our
someone's
storm.
gonna look into that then? And
Thank
you're
you.
gonna ask about that?
I'll
then?
ask
Right.
them tomorrow.
They should.
I'll ask my
We'll give them
contacts,
our water.
but
It
again,
runs
they're,
out.
I meet with Sumo, and they're kind of, they're affiliated with, but they are not Central Utah Water.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's a whole separate entity that actually began 40 years ago, and, so it might be that just because we are in the valley, that we're,
Or because nobody's ever asked.
maybe.
Yeah,
I love
okay.
those bills.
All right. So for me, SESD, just a couple of things. One, Janet, you asked, and Carrie, you as well, about the connection of solar, and I did get an answer on that. So apparently there was a moratorium on connecting solar, but that's long since expired, so whatever wording or whatever understanding that's out there that says that they're not allowing people to connect to solar is outdated, so it was a temporary thing while they were doing, basically a rate assessment, I think is what it was tied to.
But they didn't call our residents back to say the moratorium was over.
No, my understanding is that they did try to message that, but maybe not effectively. Did you have your hand up, Corbett?
Because
Yeah,
most
but-
people think, they
Just,
still think they can't get it, I believe.
Yeah, so, I mean, and they acknowledged that it was probably inadequate messaging, so, I mean, I know that you have particular people that have asked about it, so.
Yep,
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, there's your answer.
Okay, thanks for
So
getting
solar
it.
is okay, good.
Yeah. And then for Woodland Hills Day, they're.
He was raising his hand again.
Oh,
For roads, I just wanted you to do the roads.
okay, all
Oh,
right. Related to SESD? Oh, okay.
after you.
Well, you're still in my thunder, Corbin.
Sorry.
I had a big SESD
Okay,
announcement.
Go.
Woodland Hills Day, they're gonna cut us a check for about, I think, $1,500 for just city, I mean, it doesn't have to be tied to Woodland Hills Day.
We
Woodland
got a
Hills Day is
little
good.
more out of him last year, I think.
Yes, I know, pleasing you people.
My God. I think we got $2,000 out of him. I think we twisted their arm and got 2,000.
Oh,
We'll do it again, it's okay.
okay, well, I thought that was gonna be a bright spot in your sky, but apparently.
No, it's great. I'm excited, thank you. It's money. Close.
Say well.
And it doesn't come from the PTR budget.
Right? Because there's not much in there.
Or with the Mills Day budget.
I know.
Yeah, we've appreciated their sponsorship of Woodland Hills Day for a long time now.
They've done a good job.
Yeah,
You know.
well, we get the same amount as Elk Ridge, so, that's not enough, I guess.
No, it's good.
We're better in Elbridge.
Well, that's what I think, but.
Can we
That's what they
not
think too.
say that on?
Oh, sorry.
We
Strike
were
that from the
joking.
minutes. Yeah, that was a joke.
Well, that's kind of the Springville, Shelbyville rivalry, if any of you watch The Simpsons. You know, it's just a good natured rivalry. All right, and then COG and MAG, so,
Your meetings go long because they keep canceling the ones the month before and your 3-hour meetings now.
right, and actually the last one I had a conflict, and so I did not go. I went to their transportation meeting, they had one, well, actually it was yesterday, and I had to cut out of that because we had a call with the attorneys, but, there's nothing really to report, I mean, the transportation side of it, I mean, you know, and Jeremy Searle was there, and, you know, and I have not been debriefed on what went on after I left, but, you know, he was there, because they didn't get to our city until after I had to cut out, but, I mean, mostly it's like rerouting of roads like Woodland Hills Drive, I mean, they're just trying to avoid Spanish Fork Main Street becoming a, you know,
But
Logan
it's
Main
already
Street.
became, yeah, Logan, it takes you 2 hours to get through Logan now. It seems
Yeah.
like it's so awful.
Yeah.
Spanish Forks are east.
So I hope they can figure that out.
Yeah, they've got some long-term planning that they're working on, and it seems like viable solutions, and you got a lot of stakeholders that are, you know, involved. So I think, and even Lehigh, I think that, you know, Lehigh is probably an example of a city that didn't have adequate long-range transportation.
I'm worried about Woodland Hills Drive, what that's gonna turn into when all these homes are done.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's gonna definitely be a main artery, but they're looking at tying it into 6 is what I saw in terms of, so they're gonna kind of cut it through over by that D.R. Horton development. And
So the
tie it into 6.
owner of some of that land stopped by me the other day, and I spoke with him for a bit.
The owner
Of the land that we would punch through.
oh, right,
And so he wanted to see if he could come and pitch, you know, kind of his thoughts on that to us. But
he's a resident of Woodland Hills.
no, he's not. He's
Oh.
going to all the different all the different cities around here.
That
Okay,
would
trying
be
to-
benefited from a different transportation.
Yeah,
Route.
and it's slightly different than what they're pitching right now,
Okay.
per the master plan from UDOT. But instead of it coming through and kind of hitting a couple lights into 6th, he's saying, why don't we just shift it straight so it punches straight over? And so his land would be the most affected. But he just wanted to know if you'd be interested in him popping over. And I gave the documentation to Corbett. Did you get a chance to share that with the mayor at all? But I'd be happy to also stop in and kind of share with you what he was saying, just in case he shows up and asks, did you hear about this?
right, now I can say yes.
Information.
They've
Yes.
had several plans of shooting us over to Highway 6, and yet as more development goes, I really wonder how they're going to have this straight shot anymore, because I mean, at one time it was going to go straight through Davis's and then down that way, right? and 11,200 was gonna be 5
Oh, how
lanes.
it curved over,
Mhm.
yeah, I
And
know.
curved over now, that's not gonna be able to happen because
Yeah.
new people own those properties, and so it'll be interesting to see what they really come up with and if they can buy the easements to actually get us over there, because they can't go along Powerhouse Road, that's 25 miles an hour and it's this wide.
Yeah, I think
And
the current
so-
plan is right before Banks left off Woodland Hills Drive to then hang a right off the right on the light.
Mm-hmm.
It would basically just plow straight up through and kick over. Is that what your understanding was?
Yeah, my understanding is where that Walmart market, that
Mhm.
neighborhood market, I think that's where it's going to tie in generally.
And that's already getting to be a mess. They put in a second roundabout there just to get people to go around the other way to get onto Canyon. So they're already noticing that they're turning into Lehigh right there,
Yeah,
and that would be a mess.
yeah, well, and, you know, at least the considerations are being made, we'll see if they get it right.
And if they can get the Salem Parkway done, which connects Elkridge Drive out to the freeway, that will be another
I've been talking
way
about
out.
that for 25 years.
I
So
know
that
they
was
have.
funded.
They got all the easements in place, and they
Yeah.
were just waiting on the final funding of that.
We did that,
Mhm.
so we allocated that money.
So that should be going in.
Yeah, okay, well, that's all I have, so.
I like the light they have there.
They
Yeah.
finally got the light.
I know, my son did too,
She-
he came home and said, there's a light,
It's so ghetto.
cause he goes to the gym and pays and
Yeah, it's ghetto, but at least it helped, it's something.
they
They wanted to have
runs and pays
something, they wanted to, well, there was some controversy on getting that light, and so when they finally got the okay to put the light in, because I was asking the mayor about it, you know, said, no, and I was kind of teasing about it, and said, well, we needed to get a light in, and it took a lot of work to get it to this point, and so.
It's all about gratitude, Janet. You see,
Yeah.
thankful for what we have.
I'm not complaining.
I know, I'm just joking.
I think they're waiting until, because they were waiting for the vote to, because that's obviously going to be expanded, that whole intersection to go straight through. And so maybe they were waiting to make sure the easements and the funding were in place that they could widen the road there before they put those big poles in. Kind of like how they did at Woodland Hills Drive and the highway.
I like to just pull out in front of traffic and just, scream.
Take your chances.
Yes.
That's why she put the flag on the back of the Jeep, so she.
Right.
It's
I saw
Flag
that.
Day.
Oh, yeah.
It's Flag Day.
I know.
And I have a flag,
And you observed it.
I love it.
so I have a flag.
All right, anything that anyone wants to bring up for
Corbett
upcoming?
did.
meetings? Oh, yeah, Corbett, thank you.
Just an update on the roads, the crew that's doing the patches has gone through and saw cut the patches. I will go through tomorrow and paint everything that's been saw cut. So if you see a patch or you see something that's not painted that you think needs to be patched, please let me know. But they're looking at Homestead, Woodland Hills Drive, there's 8 or 9 patches on Woodland Hills Drive. There's the one right by the gate, by the southern gate on Summit Creek Drive.
Good, that was on my list.
How about the one on Maple?
Uh,
There's a crater in Maple.
No, that's, Dancon's gotta fix that.
Okay.
The one at Summit Creek Drive, I'm noticing, on Sunday when I was going to church, I'm coming through, and nobody wants to go on that side, so they were going the wrong way, traffic, and actually almost hit me head on, but it's all good. So it'll be good to get it fixed.
Janet, please stop trying to beat your Jeep up more.
I know, it's just my driving, I'm sure.
Yeah, you gotta
They've
go
done
to
saw
fence.
cut, they'll be patching as soon as they can.
Okay, but you're painting them, so people should notice.
I'll paint them just to make sure that I'll go through and paint them, just to make sure that they've gotten everything that we wanted them to get. And then I'll communicate that with with the contractor if they missed any.
Awesome.
Thank you. I do think that the potholes, Corbin and I talked a little bit about this today, and that's a high visibility sort of a thing, and so I think it is really important that we get those addressed. So, okay, anything else on upcoming city council meetings? All right, well, let's take a break and resume at 7:45. Okay. All right, we'll resume and begin our city council meeting. If Council Member Hilliard will please lead us in the pledge, and then Councilmember
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful to be gathered this night. We're grateful for the city that we live in, and we're grateful for the residents, and we're grateful for the opportunity that we all have to work together. We pray that Thou would bless us, that we might think good and wise decisions, and that Thou would bless our city to feel a measure of peace and harmony and a desire to work together. And we say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Okay, public comment portion. Nobody here. Any comments from anybody joining us by Zoom?
Mayor, I've got a comment. This is Steve Dickert.
Yeah, please, Steve.
So I don't know whether it's already in the schedule of fees, but I think you may want to consider at some point in time in a future city council meeting, the licensing of solicitors for the city. And you may want to post at the city entrance that there's a fine of X amount of dollars if you're not a licensed solicitor in the city. That might keep you and some of your residents from having people just show up in your city pretending to be solicitors when they're really not, or actually being solicitors when you really don't want them there. So
Yeah.
just a thought.
No, good point. Jody, and I'm assuming that is not in our
There's
current.
no license for solicitors, we have a business license, and we tell everyone that wants to, most of them have to have some kind of license if they're selling books or whatever else they're selling door to door. And so they typically will call us.
I asked another city about this because I had some people coming to my house door to door that did not live in our city, so they wouldn't typically get a business license. So I asked another city what they do, and they do have a licensing, it's like a temporary license. I'm going to be in your city for these 3 weeks selling solar panels or whatever, right? And they have to get a license, and then they give them like a piece of paper that shows so that
We could ask for it.
so that when someone comes to your door, they can show you, yes, I'm approved by your city to be here, do you wanna listen to me? And if you say, no, thank you, they can go their way, but you're not always sure, and most of our front doors aren't visible from the street, so it makes people uncomfortable when they just come and say, I'm selling this, right? And so I think it would be, I like Steve's idea of maybe even a fine if you don't have that temporary licensing to be available to solicit, but that's a very real thing in other cities.
Okay, thank you. Jody, would you maybe just make a note of that for we can even discuss it in our staff meeting tomorrow? Some ways to possibly execute that. Okay, anything else? Like anything there?
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you. Okay.
You're just amazed I didn't talk about the development agreement, so I just want to put that on the record.
You got it on.
Well, you gotta be here in person to make those kinds of comments.
No, you don't, feel free.
All right, item 14, consent agenda. City council minutes from May 10, 2022, city council meeting. I get a motion to,
I'll make the motion to approve.
okay.
I'll second.
Motion by Councilmember Pratt and seconded by Councilmember Malkovich. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Item 15, the approval of interlocal cooperation agreement between Utah County and Woodland Hills regarding election ballot drop boxes.
I'll move.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Malkovich,
I'll second that.
second by Councilmember Hilliard. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Okay, item 16 is tabled as, let's see, item 17.
16's not.
Oh, 16, oh, okay, no, 16, you're right. Item 16, thanks Jody. Ordinance amending sections 288 and 289 of the city development agreement and construction standards. That's the one regarding the water, the diameter of the water line.
Yep.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve that.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Pratt,
I'll second it.
seconded by Councilmember Lunt. Councilmember Malkovich. This is a roll call vote, I believe. Yes.
Yep, yes.
Okay. Councilmember Hilliard,
Yes.
Councilmember Pratt,
Yes.
Councilmember Kinnison,
Yes.
Councilmember Lunt.
Yes.
Motion carried. Okay, item 17, resolution creating a fee schedule for misdemeanor violations. That is tabled. Item 18, contract for garbage services as per our discussion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to renew that contract for 24 months per and according to feedback given by our lawyers,
Contingent upon.
contingent upon feedback from the lawyer.
Relating to the
The contract, yeah.
Okay, that's a motion by Councilmember Hilliard,
I'll second that.
seconded by Councilmember Pratt. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. And contract with Utah County Sheriff's Office, that is tabled. Okay, so that addresses all business and discussion items. I would like to enter into a closed session. As a reminder, an open meeting can be closed for the following purposes: discussing an individual's character, professional competence, physical or mental health, strategy sessions to discuss collective bargaining, strategy sessions to discuss pending or reasonably imminent litigation, discussions regarding security personnel, devices or systems, or investigative proceedings regarding allegations of criminal misconduct. So,
I'll make a motion.
okay, a motion by
I'll second.
Councilmember Hilliard and a second by Councilmember Malkovich to go into closed session. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, meeting is closed.
So we're gonna have to kick. Bye, Steve.
We're kicking you out. He's gone.
Okay.
There's a
Yeah, that's up close and personal there.
pop in front of the camera.
All right, so we're back.
Killer tagline, I'm loving it.
All right, so Carrie,
I motion to adjourn.
okay,
I second it.
second by Janet, all in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Is that from Saturday, the tan line?
No, this is today, this is last meeting.
where your hat.
Well, you can also see I